Welcome to Tiffdoesloans Podcast. So today I'm streaming with Brady Barker with Black Cedar Investments. How are you?
Doing pretty great. How about you?
Awesome. I'm doing amazing. Me and Brady met at the WealthCon this year. Definitely had a lot of our investment journeys have been crossing paths. And he is mainly focused in the multi-investing, which is huge, in multiple states. I believe Utah, Texas, and now Georgia. So absolutely amazing. So why don't you just kind of start by telling us, like how you got into real estate and how did you end up choosing, or maybe what was that click for you for your niche to kind of go into the multi-investing versus another one?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Tiffany. I was happy to share. For me, it's been a fun journey, right? And I think that's the fun part of it. We're always continually learning and growing. And for me, I was a college student, looking at what career I wanted to do, and I had always heard real estate investing was great, and so I figured, why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah, figure out how to try and get in there, right? I didn't have capital to get started myself, and so I started working for a property management company and started getting some hands-on experience there, which I'm extremely grateful for. I'm very grateful for good property managers, and I'm grateful that I don't have to do that every day anymore.
Yeah.
So I used that experience. I didn't really see though what was on the investment side, right? The financial side behind it. I was mainly just caught up in operations and property management, so I kind of got discouraged, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So I don't know how these people make it work, because most of our owners were very old school. They bought one unit and then another one and then a 4 unit after a couple of years, and then maybe they got up to like a 12-plex. By the time they were older, and were just holding on to it till they died, and it was these old crummy buildings. Now that was just my perception, at least, right, of the owners we were working with. They were all great, but that was their style. So I didn't know there was any other way to do it until I was kind of looking around at my next career move and actually stumbled upon syndications. And that's where I ended up working for a syndication firm, used that, leveraged relationships to go business partnerships, and start getting some equity on some deals.
And is Black Cedar like your, did you find them later down the line, or are you an owner of this?
Yeah, so I'm a part owner of Black Cedar Investments.
Okay, awesome.
I met business partners through connections with previous firm and relationships that I made there.
Amazing. Look at that, property management. And it's so wild too, because you're always maybe in that wrong position, and then it's like get a little discouraged, but everyone's glad that you stuck it out, because now you are helping a ton of people get into the correct investments, right?
Yeah.
So why don't you kind of tell me, how did you and your partners choose, or maybe why, maybe a couple of key factors when choosing the states that you chose? So you have Utah, Texas, and then you mentioned that you're now adding Georgia. So why those states?
Great question. So one of the biggest things we look at is, are they long-term, is it going to be growth, right? And, I grew up in Utah, I'm very familiar with it, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon, right? The policies at a statewide level, and then when you go to different counties and cities, it's very aggressive on growth, right? And I don't think I need to tell anyone about how aggressive Texas has been.
Yeah, no,
And
Texas is definitely fire, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of the first things we look at, right? And then we look at our, the policies, friendly towards landlords, and so those are two of the biggest things we look at initially from looking at a statewide level. And then past that, we look at, okay, what metro areas or MSAs do we see where there's jobs going and they're going to be growing? Like, I live in a place in Utah where it's what you would call like a Zoom town. And that's not
a Zoom
town. Yeah, it's a
town.
term
Like you zoom through.
that, but also like Zoom, like you do video
Oh,
calls because there's not a lot of jobs here. Most people work remote here. And
hmm
that's not the kind of city that I want to invest in because if the job market gets very tough, you you don't have a strong foundation. And so even within the state of Utah, I look at okay, where are the strong job markets where there's places that are growing for the next 3, 5, 10 years, and then that's where we go. So we look at that regardless of the state, especially from a job growth level.
awesome. And can I see something with Texas? So a lot of people are going to be a little discouraged when it comes to like the property taxes. So is there do you go like property to property? Like, how do you guys handle if the deal is worth it with maybe having the more hefty, the more hefty property taxes? It definitely, I know most investors, it still can be it definitely, and they're still growing in appreciation. Um, but also that might, I think that holds back maybe more like single investors. So what is kind of your strategy there?
Yeah, I mean, for each place, just understanding what the county tax assessor is going to be doing, how they're going to be viewing that deal, and we pretty much at this point will try to appeal mostly every deal, right? If we see, hey, they're trying to jack up our tax rate, we can show them, maybe an appraisal on the deal if we got it at a discount, and show them, hey, here you're valuing it at a higher value than we actually bought it for. Or in other cases, you could bring in like third-party firms to do that. But at the end of the day, right, it's all dollars and cents, and tax and insurance are the big thing that people are scared of in Texas because they're real issues, right?
Yeah.
And so, we just need to be able to plan for them and understand, at least from the county, we say, hey, let's be real, in the next 5 years, what are taxes going to be looking like for us? And then we can build some cushion into our assumptions and quite honestly, just move on less deals and only go for the ones where we can make it work with that cushion.
Yeah. And like for the insurance, that's another it would you say that Utah is so I do know a couple of investors that kind of do look for that like um focus on the weather and
Mhm.
if there's like natural disaster type things. I know like is Utah is that kind of big for it? That doesn't really have any like natural, not like a lot like high for like natural disasters, not like Florida or something. So
Yeah,
Utah would be lower, right? So that's
yeah,
also another huge benefit in investing in that way.
yeah, totally.
And then also for you adding Georgia. So what was Georgia has been super hot now for like, I think like a year or two. Like a lot of California is going basically buying everything up over there for investments. So for your is that are you guys just getting in there? Do you have like a current property or like a project that's live right now?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So for we've actually had our eye on Georgia for a while. One of my business partners is from Chattanooga, Tennessee,
Okay.
and so he's been saying he's like, hey, it's not the most well-known place, but there's a ton of growth. Everything between here and Atlanta, like it's growing.
Yeah.
And so we actually looked at getting into some properties in 2021. It just never worked out. And so we, ended up going different directions, had more success in different markets. But now we are, getting into, the Georgia market. And we also have business partners who have been there since 2015. So that's good, having the local knowledge, having relationships, property managers and people like that. So that was one of the things that honestly, the relationships that we already had just made it a lot easier for getting into that market.
Yeah. That is amazing. Also, you and your partners, you live in Utah. So do your partners live in the other states? Or do you guys have like I guess like boots on the ground? Is that necessary for like all of your projects?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's obviously very nice to have boots on the ground, but I wouldn't say that it's absolutely kind of a deal breaker for us.
Yeah.
And so my business partner lives in Utah and, uh, you know, is able to fly out to properties. I mean, either of us can, right, at
Yeah.
a moment's notice. But then, yeah, typically we'll partner with other people who are local in areas. It doesn't always work out that way, but we'd like to have somebody who's at least within a couple hours of the property when possible.
Amazing. And okay, so you guys focus on apartment buildings only. Do you do commercial? Is it all like residential? And then what are the key factors you're kind of when you're choosing a property? Like for newer investors that might want to be when you're searching for the property, like what are the key factors that go into that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So for us, we primarily focus on just apartment complexes up to this point,
Okay.
and between about 50 to 200 units. Really, for me, I care more about the purchase price than I do about the actual number of units. The number of units definitely comes into play when you're talking economies of scale with management. For me, I work a lot more on the capital side. For getting a loan, it's obviously a big deal what the loan size is, and then for bringing in investors. Doing a $3 million raise versus a $10 million raise is a very different story when you're working with retail investors or people who are investing, amounts like $100,000 rather than having big institutional investors. So for us, with that being said, 50 to 200 units is the sweet spot we like to stay in. But within that, really like the $5 to $15 million purchase price range is where we like to be at. And we look for light value add properties, meaning, typically their property that's cash flowing is doing decently well. There's probably just some operational inefficiencies. Maybe there's some units that need to be renovated, things like that we look for. Because we know for us and our, based on the risk profile of the deal, we need to be able to come in and do enough improvements so that we can force the appreciation rather than just rely on natural appreciation and be able to execute a business plan in about 5 years. So that's the main things we look at is 50 to 200 units, $5 to $15 million purchase price with a value add component so that we can be able to execute a strong business plan within the next 5 years.
Awesome. And for investors that are looking, for new projects or to get involved, do you guys have minimums on how much they could put on? Obviously, you might ask for more, like if it's a bigger deal. But do you if it's like what you said, like 5 to 15 million, roughly, do you want them to like bring in 100,000 or can it be below, or do you kind of let it shift?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's typically in that price range. It's typically 50 to 100,000.
Okay. Awesome. And what would some of your advice? So as we're like in the last few years, it's definitely been the market, the rates have been higher, the market has been slower, not as much inventory. We are seeing everything kind of come down, and we can already see a lot more movement right now, like a lot of people coming off the sidelines. So what do you kind of recommend to these newer investors that are, looking to get started in the multi-investing? Like, do they just reach out to you? I like, what would your advice be to them? Like how to get started?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm always happy to chat with anybody. I think the biggest thing, so I came from a world of high ticket coaching, right? Where it's like people come in, do these mentorships and stuff. There's pros and cons of that. I've even done a little bit myself. I'm kind of getting away from that more now. Maybe I'll take on a client here or there, but for the most part, I'm just like, hey, I just want to be able to, throw out free information, and I know that, when you try to add value to others, the universe has a way of doing it at some point, right? Without expectation of return. But anyways, I say that to mean that I wouldn't necessarily recommend that people go out and drop crazy amounts of money to get into this if it's not something that they're going to fully be able to commit to, right? I think there's a lot of marketing messages out there about being able to do things in a couple hours a week, something like that.
I know.
It's tell my wife that for
I know.
the
It's like to get
job.
abs in like 5 minutes, a day.
Yeah,
Like it's not going to happen. Like it's a whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I
So that's
agree.
where,
That's great
like,
advice. Yes,
yeah, like it's, go lower risk at that point, right? You don't need to go pay 10 grand on a course. I've done that before, right? Um, learn good lessons from it, right? But, you can buy $10 books, listen to free podcasts, things like that to
it's
dabble
fun.
and see, okay, is this what I want? And
Yeah.
then from there, and then try and connect with a couple people, right? And
Yeah.
get real world kind of advice and decisions. For me, I was able to connect through my employment, right? I was young, I was able to, just get right into real estate full time. Not everyone can do that, right? Not everyone can make
Through the
that
property
shift.
management. Like you already had the connections, like you were already in there.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
exactly.
feel like that's where a lot of people that even if you can't start in on the level of where you want to be, just like any job, you kind of get in another, area of it. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's like great advice. There is so much media and stuff out there, like get rich or get this, and like just a couple hours a week. And I'm like, I'm not, I'm on the loan side, not full investment side, but it's still like I go to investor events like 3 to 4 times a week.
yeah.
Like even right there, that's more than 3 hours. It's like three
There's a
hours
lot of
a
fun
day.
involved.
Yeah, plus all the other stuff that that we're doing. But I think of it in real estate, like anything in the real estate. I kind of think of it like a gym. It's a lifestyle. Like you have to adapt to that whole. Don't fall into the social media, like work 5 minutes a week. It's
Yeah,
definitely a long game, especially your niche. And I could
yeah.
see that
So,
maybe kind of working like for some of the wholesalers or like maybe even a fix and flip. But like yours, especially, it's definitely a long game.
yeah, it's years of grinding, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
It,
long,
it's great. It can be profitable, but you have to treat it as a business, right? That's the
yes.
hard thing too. But you have to treat it as a business. Where are you okay with not being paid for 5 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the reality of it, right? So treat it as a business, like as a long-term investment business.
Yeah. And just like get that mindset, like you're building, it's almost like I feel like even like multi-investing, the main mindset is like building wealth for your family. Maybe
Totally.
not even like for like generational down the line, or like kind of getting into as many as you can. And then do you do so because you are focused, like you said, like a business, you have all your, you're growing your big apartment buildings, all the multi-investing. Do you do any of the other ones on the side for like, do you have anything in place that you're still maybe doing that's bringing in cash flow, or um like another like side niche, or I don't know, like wholesaling or anything?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So for me, I don't do as much of smaller investing. If there's things that come along,
Yeah.
I just have one place that I self manage. Um, and that's something, I have good relationships with some wholesalers, flippers, people like that. People with Airbnbs. It's tempting, right?
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe every here and there I'll get in a side project, but for the most part, I've kept my blinders on to say, hey, I got to stay focused on this multifamily I'm doing. But in answer to your question, definitely. For me, I wouldn't have been able to do this over the last, it's been primarily the last 4 years I've been doing this,
Yeah.
full time. But then I also have to do other things. So I'm in the National Guard, so that's where my benefits come from.
Oh,
Commercial, right?
thank you for
Don't have to worry
serving.
about health insurance. No, appreciate it. So that's more for the benefits, right? Pay isn't really there. And then additionally, I've done some coaching, like I mentioned, learned the things I do and don't like about that industry, and then also I've done like some consulting,
Yeah.
1099 stuff. So I've done stuff for other operators, um, and currently that's kind of the direction I'm going, is spending more time doing that, because I know for me, one of my biggest priorities is how can I continue to keep money. That's
Yeah.
the thing that I want, right? And obviously get a paycheck from things,
Yeah.
and keep things not a conflict of interest with my current interests. But yeah, um, and then also I do also do commercial inspections, residential and commercial.
Okay.
for like
Or
for
like
the
the
quality.
actual the home inspections.
So I do it for lender draws
Okay.
for when people are doing ground up construction and they have a construction loan. They go in and the lender wants the borrower, let's say, submits, hey, we completed XYZ or we have all these materials, right? I go in and I'm with a third party company that we go in and we take those pictures. We submit that to the lender to say, hey, here's what's actually going on with the property. So that only takes up a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But essentially, I joke with my wife that I have 4 side hustles.
Yeah.
Right?
But they're all in real estate. I mean, I'm the same way, we all keep it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of the reality of it, right? Is you if you take this path down real estate, it's so much fun, but you do kind of have to be creative and figure out a couple of different
Yes. And still kind of keep the other things building as well.
exactly.
But even like the coaching or the inspection, I mean, I'm all for that. I like to be like, I'm in loans, but I'm still always at the investor events. I like help raise capital. I'm tied to, like I work with a lot of like referral partners. So it's like that still utilizes a lot of my time, but it's also like a job in itself, a lot of all the networking and stuff. But there's definitely, or just I think it's huge too in the real estate, like that when you're doing the home inspections, it's like it's all going to lead to another person or another, another side hustle, or maybe then you start coaching them, and it just all keeps.
Yeah, it's all interconnected,
Yeah.
right? Like
And that's
you
what
have
I.
to be strategic with every move rather
Yeah.
than just be doing. I'm not just trying to do
Do
4 different
one.
things randomly, you know.
Yeah. Like I only stay real estate. I do have some people like always trying to pull me out. Like, oh, well, you're doing a bunch of stuff, like do sales, like sell these, like, what are those? Like, cause I'm a lot into fitness, but I'm not going to go sell like supplements. Like I'll, like I'll go to networking events. Like everything is still for me falls under like real estate, like everything under, but yeah, I'm not going to start a side hustle like out of it,
Yeah,
as long as it's all still kind of like under the umbrella of real estate.
yeah, exactly. And where's that going to take you, right? Because maybe you
So,
can make
well, hopefully do a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Just
Just
with that
climbing, I'm
example,
climbing this ladder in my vision, like in my mind. So we'll see.
yeah,
I'm on my, hey, but you did mention that you're like at that 4 years. So I feel like this is that year you're getting to that like fifth year, because a lot of start heating up, and it's a good year. Like a lot more inventory will be opening up. I don't know if that would be a huge. Do you see that has affected your business? I know like in single family homes, like regular, the low inventory has definitely halted a lot. Has that affected your business? Has that kind of been an issue as well?
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
right? I remember when I first got into this, people would say, "Hey, you need to underwrite, 100 deals to submit 10 offers to get one property that you close."
Yeah.
And now people are saying, "Oh, it's hundreds." Some people claim, "Oh, 300." Some people say, "Oh, I looked at 500 deals before I got it." Right? Are those numbers inflated? I think so, but I
Yeah.
mean, it is a lot, right? You're having to do a lot more work to get a smaller amount of deals.
Yeah. That was, the past couple of years, but we're we're coming around. I'm convinced that the tide is turning. So I'm
Yeah,
I'm I'm the optimist in the real estate industry. Like, no, it's turning. It's already turned. So like in my mind. But of
yeah.
course, like I've had to, prep this every morning and be optimistic. Like
Send those affirmations like, "You got it, you got
but
it."
but it's great too, because I think most of the people that have lasted, through this tough market, like you do talk to them and they definitely like have that, like they definitely got that fight in them. Like they've had to convince themselves, like, nope, just get up, keep going, keep going, keep going, and have partnered up with other people and have created like a culture of the education and, really just honing in on the relationships in that time. So
So,
I feel
yeah,
like
exactly.
you definitely get that vibe from like, okay, yeah, they're they're still going. Like
Yeah, yeah.
and then so just kind of wrap up here, as this year, so you are going on your 5th year with you and your partners, right? So that is amazing. If new investors were interested, I will have all your information below, but maybe just like how would somebody start that process with you?
Yeah, no, it's really simple. The biggest thing is the way I run my business is we're very close with each and every one of our investors. And I'm not going to tell any of them to get into something if it's not good for them. So
Yeah.
we start off before we even talk about investments for the first conversation or two or even three, right? We're just understanding, hey, is this a good fit, right?
Yep.
Because I don't want to get somebody into a project with me for 5 years if it's not a good fit. The headaches aren't going to be worth it, and same for them as well, right? And
Yep.
so for me, I very much believe that hey, first conversation, just getting to understand a person, understand their goals, right? It may sound cliche, but I literally ask that on every call, right, with a new investor. So that's where we start, right? I'm our I oversee our investor relations, and so I'm the main point of contact for all of that. And then from there, if it is a good fit, it's a very simple process, right? We meet the people where they're at in terms of education and say, hey, if they're already experienced with stuff, cool. Let's look at opportunities. Let's make sure you're good to go. If they're not, then we're going to say, hey, even if we have an opportunity going on right now, let's make sure that you're educated, that you understand what you're getting yourself into, and then from there we can move forward. So as soon as we can understand a person's goal, understand their goals, and understand their education level, then it's super easy to move forward. So it all just starts with a simple phone call.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I like it's good that you do make them kind of really get that relationship together, because it's not just like a deal. It's like you said, it's like 5 years. Like if they're not too sure about it, what's going to happen with that? They're going to be calling you all the time, like not really, if they don't understand the deal, or if they weren't very sure about it, it's going to cause them a lot of stress and probably and also, on the active investor side,
Yeah,
um, if they're not really like kind of understanding what they got themselves into, or like how it really works. So I do think that's really important. And I feel a lot of the multi-investors that I've talked to, like you are almost like you're choosing your partners.
yeah,
It's more like, yeah, it's not transactional. It's like you want to make sure that you both kind of are going to go into this deal together. So that's huge. And that you're the relationship like person for like the Black Cedar.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, Brady, I thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to have all of his information below. If you're interested in any of the multi investing or any, have any questions for him, like he said, he'll be happy to help. But feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Brady, thank you so much.
For sure. Thanks, Tiffany. We'll see ya.